Long lines, short-tempers, and hunger pain. Federal workers find themselves waiting in line when they should be working, waiting in line at food pantries.
You know, with my rent due next week, I could take anything I can get. At this point, I haven't gotten a paycheck this month. So the free groceries is very important, very helpful.
I've been furloughed before. I've never seen it like this, where, you know, people actually had to go to a food bank. Normally it's maybe a week or two or a day or two or whatever for a furlough, but not like this, where there's nothing coming in.
Scripps News congressional correspondent Nathaniel Reed live on Capitol Hill. And Nate, another bill, this time from Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, a Republican senator, to pay some federal employees. It failed on the Senate floor this afternoon. Any word yet on whether or not there is room for any compromise?
Yeah, Democrats filibustered it, and they announced their intention to do so this morning because that bill would only pay the federal employees who've been forced to work during the duration of this shutdown. There's a whole lot of federal employees, possibly like some of the ones we just heard from, who have been forced to stay at home. They've been furloughed temporarily. They will receive, under federal law, back pay once the shutdown ends. But, Dal, as we've all seen, this shutdown is going for a very long time. We have no idea when it ends. We're on day 23 right now. Again, no guarantee. A bunch of Republican and Democratic senators telling us that they didn't really see any progress happen over the course of this week, over the last couple hours. The Senate's, in fact, scheduled to adjourn as soon as today for the weekend, leaving on yet another Thursday with no solution, only to come back Monday afternoon into the evening and then try and, you know, do this thing once again. They voted now 12 times to try and fund the government. All of those votes have failed. So a lot of questions about when that strategy changes, when either party would be willing to back down. I asked, though, Senator Ron Johnson, the chief sponsor of that bill to try and pay some federal employees, if he'd be willing to broaden out who gets a paycheck if they can't agree on a larger solution to reopen the government. Here's what he told me. Would you support bills to pay all furloughed federal employees?
That's right. Again, I went down the floor and presented my most nonpartisan self, told them I went down there in good faith. The fact of the matter is, I saw Senator Van Hollen's bill earlier today. I laid out their three differences. They're not that big. They're not insurmountable. So I talked to both Senator Van Hollen and Senator Peters. We'll get our staffs working on this and see if we can iron out differences, and maybe we can come to an agreement next week.
Somewhat optimistic language there from the Republican senator from Wisconsin, believing that there might be some path forward on a bill to pay some of these federal employees who may very well, like you just heard, be waiting in line at a food bank simply because they don't know when the next check is coming. They're typically solvent to pay their mortgages, their car payments for food, gasoline, groceries, etc. The problem is they don't know the next time they're going to get a paycheck, and many of them forced to take dire measures while they sit at home or go into work. Again, both of those options not getting paid.
Nate, the key word is that they are talking, and that was what I took from what the senator was saying. As the shutdown continues, we're learning now that as many as 24 states could run out of money for things like SNAP and WIC. Where do we stand with regards to that, and is that moving the needle forward?
Well, look, that's the big question, whether that changes the calculus for Democrats. I asked the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer earlier this week if that moved the needle at all for him. He said, no, that just brings, forward the issue of why Republicans should be negotiating with Democrats on this. But some other Democrats in the U.S. Senate with a slightly more nuanced view that this could actually turn around. This could be a really terrible situation for them, for their constituents, should SNAP and WIC funding run out as a result of those pots running dry in various states, and millions of Americans who rely on those benefits each month just to feed their families or get food on the table will have nowhere to turn. Here's Senator Dick Durbin, the second top-ranking Senate Democrat. When a couple dozen states have SNAP benefits expire come November 1st, does that change the calculus for Democrats?
Well, it concerns me because in Illinois there are 1.9 million who receive SNAP, and if we don't get this resolved by November 1st, there's a question as to whether they'll get any payment at all.
So would you change your vote? Would you vote to reopen the government if SNAP is going to expire?
We'll see.
Thank you. At what point do you start to weigh, though, the pain of no extension to ACA subsidies versus the pain of no SNAP funding?
Every single day. Every single day.
What's clear is that this is going to be a tough decision for Democrats to make, whether they want to keep up this fight for these Affordable Care Act subsidies, which, of course, do expire at the end of this year, will cause a massive increase in the price of health care. But if they keep up that fight, risk the possibility that millions of Americans could lose the nutritional assistance programs that they rely on to put food on the table. Again, an increasingly difficult situation for Democrats to make as they look to keep up this fight for health insurance. Again, a situation that could just become more untenable as it goes on. Again, shutdowns, Del, we've been reporting this since day one. We're now at day 23. The longer a shutdown lasts, the more painful it gets for all parties involved.
Nate, I want to go back to something you said earlier. Did I hear you correct when you said that the senators are going home again today, and it is Thursday?
It seems likely, yes. This is largely what they've been doing for the past several weeks. They've been taking their normal long weekends. The Senate, largely before Trump was president, now that he is president, has been on kind of a Monday through Thursday schedule when they're in session. It seems very likely they're going to keep that schedule up despite the fact that there's an ongoing government shutdown. Again, the rationale there, according to Senate Republican leadership, sending some of these Democrats back to their home districts all across the country will just put that pressure on for them to reopen the government and then negotiate something on Affordable Care Act subsidies. Again, not clear that that strategy is working as Democrats keep their heels dug in, making clear that they want a negotiation involving Senate leadership and President Trump before they vote to reopen the government. Again, Republicans, President Trump, have said, sure, we'll have that conversation, but not until the government reopens. In the meantime, you've got millions of federal employees who are caught in the middle, and furthermore, the Senate taking off on Thursday, just like it's a normal week and the government is open. However, that is not the case, Del.
Scripps News congressional correspondent Nathaniel Reed for us live on Capitol Hill. Nate, as always, we thank you.